You've probably seen various media coverage of GPS jamming and spoofing going on around various conflict zones right now. That's causing problems for aviation and other industries. Very disconcerting when your aeroplane is flying maybe 20, 30, 40 miles away from some territory you don't want to go into, and then discover that GPS is out and actually you're about to bust into someone's airspace you really don't want to be in. But it's not just about position. GPS is, as I'm sure you know, actually a source of very precise time. And our concerns have been around not just position spoofing, but actually starting to spoof time. Now, many systems that we fly with, in order to keep our systems secure, we use digital certificates to encrypt and protect our communications. And we've seen some examples recently where time was spoofed over GPS. Now, all planes have a clock. They have a local clock, but over time that will drift, which is why we always sync it with GPS, which is of course the most accurate source of time, right? Well, unfortunately, where we see time being spoofed on GPS, that can cause problems. It can actually cause a poisoning effect where local devices on the plane inherit their time from the GPS clocks in satellites, and that can start to cause problems. A good example of reliance upon time might be a digital certificate. Now, in order to be valid, we need to know the source of time. Now, we're probably on the ground more familiar with certificates expiring, but actually what if the time's spoofed into the future, as has been seen on a few occasions, and actually the certificate becomes invalid because it's not valid yet? And that started to cause some problems. There's a certain operator had a challenge where their time was spoofed into the future, and that caused a number of their secure data links to drop because the certificates were no longer valid. One example could be the controller-pilot data link communication, which is a digital way of pilots and controllers communicating. If the time isn't synced within a second, it won't work. Another example could be the passenger Wi-Fi. That needs a certificate. And one of the first impacts of time spoofing is the passenger Wi-Fi stops working because the certs don't work anymore. And there's been increasing cases where there's been a cascade of problems where GPS time has then poisoned other systems and started to cause problems for the whole plane. Now, the effects vary because the source of time for each component can vary by model and manufacturer of plane. But there's a huge amount of work going on to understand truly where is the source of time, can we rely on GPS, and is it going to cause consequential problems? In one case, a plane was grounded for a couple of weeks in order to reset the time clocks on every component on board. Why? Well, time's protected against rollback, obviously, but it's not protected against roll forward. So we can introduce things like leap seconds, for example. There is good news. In the future, we're starting to see adoption of what we call hybrid GPS, which will also correlate our position with ground-based navigational aids. So we can see if there's a discrepancy and we know we're being spoofed. But in the short term, there's some great work going on with industries. For example, the Ops Group published a cracking report which tells you all about it and all the efforts that aviation is doing to make itself even more safe.